question is, what should public policy target? What should we care about as society? Does it matter that some people, the 62 people I mentioned earlier that the Oxfam report referred to, does it matter? Do we feel uncomfortable that those 62 people have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50%? Should we care? These are the societal questions we have to grapple with. The final point that I want to touch on, that's complicating the debate around income inequality, is the fact that I believe that the defining challenge of our society today is the lack of economic growth. We do not have the amount of economic growth that can really meaningfully change people's lives. What do I mean? In order to double per capita incomes in one generation and meaningfully put a dent in poverty, we need these economies to grow at 7% a year. 90% of the world's population lives in the emerging world. I'm sure there are people from the emerging world here. I know there are a lot of Africans, but emerging world, yes? 90% of the world's population lives in the emerging world. The vast majority of those economies are growing far below the 7% number, that magic number that we need to double per capita incomes in one generation. Brazil, South Africa, Russia, India, all growing below 7% a year. Countries like Brazil are in recession. South Africa and Russia are talking about 1 to 2% growth a year. It's not just about developing countries, of course. Developed countries are also struggling to create economic growth. How can we actually improve people's living standards and meaningfully reduce poverty if we don't have economic growth? Now, I was trained, I have a PhD in economics. However, I'm also much more about living in the real world. And I think one of the questions we need to ask as a society is, are we perhaps focusing too much on GDP? Are there other ways of us assessing how we can value people's life and value improvements in society? Again, these are questions you need to think about. Is it good enough for me to just say we need to target 7% a year? Because clearly we're not able to do that. In the aftermath of the financial crisis, this is 8 years on from the financial crisis, and we are really struggling as public policymakers and economists, as governments and politicians, even as business people, we are struggling to create economic growth and to provide opportunities for the next generation. We are worried about debt. We're worried about the changes in the demographics that we're seeing, not just the fact that people are getting older in developed countries, but we're worried about the quality and the quantity of young people in the population. Are they actually getting access to opportunities? The OECD has put out a report that says that this generation of Americans, in the history of the country, for the first time, this generation of Americans will be less educated than any preceding generation in the past. This is damning. What kind of a society are we living in when we're under-investing in our population? McKinsey put out a report not too long ago saying the under-investment in quality of education in the United States, particularly for minorities, is so bad and so harmful for the economy, it will put the United States in a permanent recession. We are not doing the things that we need to do to ensure that we escape the income inequality trap. And yet, we have to do something before things get much worse. And that brings me to the solutions. I hope I'm not depressed you so much. I'm speaking to a